Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do beer stuff here. Burlington Brewing Company. A little bit of stout, hopeful goodness. Yeah. In the form of their North of Kathmandu. Yeah. If you can read fast, you already know that this is a bourbon barrel aged imperial toasted coconut stout. Picked this up semi-locally in Pennsylvania. I actually was out there for a documentary viewing, stopped at a couple different places, saw this on a shelf, and I was like, 12 to 16 bucks or something. I was like, hell yeah. It's been a while since I've had something big and bold from Burlington, probably close to shortly after my honeymoon with my wife, so it's been several years, because that was in 2018. Let's dive into it. Burlington Beer Co., North of Kathmandu, bourbon barrel aged imperial toasted coconut stout. A bunch of gold lettering over here. 2022 vintage. Just about 6 months old, because it was, the bottle on date is like the end of December 2022. Ale, aged for 12 months in bourbon barrels. 11% alcohol by volume. That's all we get here. Yeah. Label-wise, it's that classic Burlington kind of pinstripey, can't mistake it from a mile away kind of thing going on. So, okay, nice little hiss. A little funky degradation in the cap lining. I think we're off to a really good start here, to be perfectly honest with you. Burlington was the last beer I had from them. I don't remember, to be perfectly honest with you. Do I have a bottle cap? A bottle stopper, I should say. I have one. We'll save it for after the video. Yeah, it's been a while since I've had one of their beers and reviewed them, at least, as far as I can remember, so we'll see what's what. But a big old boldy, big rich beer, whether it be, I think the last one was a quad, could have been. But definitely looks the part of an adjunct stout, a coconut adjunct stout, because it's big, rich, bold, and thick. Poured close to, low grade motor oil, let's put it that way. It's not super thick. Had a decent head on it. Probably get it back just a skosh if I give it a whirl. Not all that much, but that head dissipates super quickly. Why? Coconut. And there's probably real coconut in here, or remnants of real coconut in here. So you get that oils from the coconut. Typically knocks down head retention in a beer, so it's kind of expected for something like that. So definitely looks part of the big old rich stout. Let's get a nose. So, what does it smell like? It smells like a bourbon barrel aged coconut stout. Again, if you watch the channel, you know where I'm going here. No shit, Sherlock. You have no idea how many breweries get that wrong. You know what I mean? They're like, this is our bourbon barrel aged coconut stout. And they'd be like, okay, well, I smell it's super spirit heavy, but there's really not, I don't smell the beer all that much, and there's a little bit of coconut, or it's like, man, there's a ton of coconut, and I can smell this big sweet maltiness in there, but there's really not much spirit. All those combinations. This smells like it's a burley stout with a nice barrel aging in spirit and coconut, all in relatively even parts. That's cool. That very much turns me on, because not a lot of people pull that off, and at least on the nose it seems like they've done that here. So yeah, nice rich stout, nutty. It comes off. A lot of these bigger, bolder stouts, when you, especially when you start throwing stuff at them, for some reason they always kind of lean in a kind of coffee direction for me. This is very much nutty, very much like kind of hazelnutty. Could be the coconut kind of pushing that direction, so it's like a rich, slightly roasty, toasty, but in a nut kind of fashion, kind of stout. Spirit-wise, definitely get bourbon. Nothing overtly descriptive about a bourbon, other than a classic kind of, red cherry kind of bourboniness. But there is a soft barrel chart to it, a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of bugs floating around by my face. And when you throw in that coconut, it just adds this really nice kind of like almost a fresh coconut, like and by fresh I mean kind of like Mounds, Almond Joy, that kind of thing where you get that kind of, you ever bite through one of those candy bars and you get that kind of slightly snappiness through the coconut, and you get this fresh kind of bursting kind of coconutiness. I know people that are like coconut purists are going to be like, did you just say real pure coconut and refer to a candy bar? Listen, I'm not eating handfuls of coconut, so that's what real coconut is to me. So if you have a problem with it, write me, Matt@massivebeers.com. But yeah, equal parts. Smells very, very pretty. And zero heat on it whatsoever. 11%, not a big beer, but we're going to dive in. Cheers, y'all. That is disappointing. Yeah. Yeah. That sucks. Oh. Rewind. Let's put a break. It doesn't suck. The letdown sucks. It's like devoid of all exuberance. So there's a big coconut component to it. You absolutely get coconut. There's no way you're not getting coconut off this beer. You get spirit, but there's no heat to it. You get a soft barrel char. It's the beer portion of the show. The thing that I touted in the beginning, I'm like, oh, you get this nice nutty kind of malt characteristic, and the beer is there. Absolutely 100% letdown. It just comes off as like muted, and I wouldn't even call it thin because there is a density to the mouthfeel. It just comes off like it's shrinking violet to everything else. And it's like, for all intents and purposes, a barrel-aged stout, the stout portion of the show is the foundation. Sometimes it can be the show, the whole show. Sometimes the foundation is the show of the building, and I'm like, wow, look at the structure of this building. But you need it. Even if it is kind of secondary and all the pomp and circumstance that is wrapped around the foundation of the building is what people notice, you still need that sturdy foundation. This lacks it. There's really no kind of meaningful kind of malt character. I mean, there's maltiness. You can tell you're drinking a stout, and there's malt forwardness to it. But it comes off as like 4 or 5%, like low ABV stouty. And then once you throw that kind of barrel aging and coconut on top of it, it's just overpowered and overweighted. It's probably the better word, because nothing here is screaming at you with volume. But it just comes off as just out of its element, out of its weight class when it comes to the other components of the beer. Oh. It's a bummer. It's a total bummer. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It's like, it's really hard to kind of break down at this point. There is a subtle tartness to it. But that just could be, everything else kind of overweighing the beer itself to it. But tartness isn't sour. It's more like funky tartness. But regardless, it's really a bummer because I feel like there's a lot of fun components in here, especially on a nose. It was kind of setting me up for something quite fantastic. But when I dive into it, it's uninspiring. It just almost seems like off. Like, not off in a sour way, off like it was just like they were blending. Like, this is the best way I could put it. So almost exclusively, a lot of these beers don't go from a barrel into a bottle and they give them to you. Obviously, there's secondary fermentation. There's a bunch of different things that can go on. But blending is typically done with barrel aging products, especially in a brewery that's going to distribute to multiple places like this. Very hyper local brewery might do, straight stuff like that. But you're talking about Burlington. I'm picking up a bottle in Pennsylvania, so they're doing blending. It's almost like they had like 2 barrels, or they had like several barrels that are blending, and then like got to the end there and they only had like a couple barrels left. I'm like, not saying they did this. This is just me making conversation. And like, just whatever's left in those 2, just throw it in there. We're good. It's like that kind of thing. Like, it's missing components. Is probably the best way I could articulate what I'm drinking. So there's nothing negative here. Even though I say something about it, slight tartness, maybe a slight off thing, it's not so much that. It's just like, it feels like a jigsaw puzzle that isn't complete. Well, all the components are there. I drink this as blind. I would say this is a bourbon barrel aged stout with coconut. I'd say that because I believe that's there. But it's just not there as a whole. It's like making a meatloaf with just beef. I can dig on that if it's done right, but I need me some veal and pork. That's a weird analogy. It's a bummer because I thought this was going to be, and it's not. So there. That's all I got. Thin, slightly, almost like funky tart with a touch of acidity to it. Not in a sour kind of way, but I could see in a couple years' time it might move in that direction. Gobs of coconut. Spirit's there. Barrel's there. Just all herky-jerky. And the base portion of the show, the beer portion of the show, the stout portion of the show, was just not up to snuff to really help hold this up and be the foundation for what it needs to be. Yeah, super bummer. Wish it was better. Let's talk about it. It was one of the better barrel-aged stouts I've had as late. No. Value and availability. The price is good if it was good. It's not good, so the price isn't good. And leave you with, if you like what we like this. If you like Dark Horse Bleed the Fifth sour, you'll like this. Not that it's sour, but that beer, I feel like it was kind of a mistake that they labeled sour. I feel like this might be a slight mistake also. Anyway. Burlington, have you been to the brewery? I have. Have you been there lately? I haven't. Have you had their beers? Have you had this beer? Have you had the 2022 version? Down there. That's the important question here. I want people that have had this beer before, I want them to talk to me and let me know if they've had this and what they thought about it. Because I'm really curious if it's just my bottle or if it could be better when it was fresh, or have you had it recently? Maybe it's a newer thing. All that stuff down there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you're enjoying some beer right now. Hope we'll see you next time. Cheers, y'all.